would say to Trump supporters are two things. Focus not on what Trump says, but what he does. And what he's going to do is cut programs that you and your families need. Do you really think it's appropriate to cut Medicaid substantially? Those are families, your families, may not be able to get the health care that they need. Your mother may not be able to get into the nursing home that she has to get into because Medicaid pays a substantial part of that. We're going to do away with aid to students who want to go to college. Your kids are going to have to go more deeply into debt.
Brian Tyler Cohen recently sat down with Bernie Sanders for a riveting discussion, exploring the potential perils posed by Elon Musk and Donald Trump's second administration. We're about to delve into some compelling clips from this interview. I've got some insights of my own to share on these issues as well. So let's dive deep into this together and unpack what's on the horizon.
When we cut back on higher educational programs. So the other thing that I would say is that if you are an honest conservative, you believe in the Constitution of the United States. You do not believe that the richest guy in the history, in modern history, can go around unilaterally cutting programs that were authorized by Congress. So if you're a Trump supporter and you're a working class person, understand that they're going after you. And if you believe in the Constitution and democracy, they're also trying to undermine that.
But Senator, we've seen Trump deploy this strategy before. He did it in 2016, where he came into office on the back of promises that he would make a healthcare plan that was more comprehensive and more affordable, of a jobs boom that never materialized, a manufacturing renaissance that never materialized, of an infrastructure plan that never materialized, and now he's doing the same thing here. And so how do you square that gap, square that circle, basically, where you have him saying one thing, consistently failing to deliver, and yet the message doesn't seem to get through?
It's just not just failure to deliver. He lies all the time, and this is a whole other problem. And Trump has, I'm not going to say the politicians throughout the ages haven't lied, people lie, but he has taken it to an entirely new level. And part of their strategy is just to lie and lie and lie. You go after USAID, you come up with some crazy, outrageous lies to justify what you're doing.
Right, like they're sending $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza.
These guys, and Musk amplifies that on Twitter, etc. I think what we have got to do, which the Democratic Party is at the moment incapable of doing, is organizing at the grassroots level. And I'm going to be going around the country trying to do that, trying to get working people and young people, people of color, just the majority of the people to stand up and say, you know what? When 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, when 85 million people have no health insurance, you do not need to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut programs that working families desperately need. Let's focus on the needs of workers. What do we need to do? We need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. You think Trump and the Republicans are going to do that? Ain't going to do that. We need to make it easier for workers to join unions. You think Trump and the Republicans are going to do that? No, they've actually neutered the National Labor Relations Board, which will make it harder for workers to get their union victory certified. Do you think Trump is going to do anything real about lowering the cost of prescription drugs? I doubt it very much. So what we have got to do is focus on the needs of working people. What are they? Healthcare system is broken. Childcare system is broken. Housing crisis of enormous consequence. Climate change is threatening the entire planet. And we can create a whole lot of jobs moving to sustainable energy. Stay focused on what is important to working people. Expose the hypocrisy of Trump. I think that's kind of what we got to do.
There are those who would say that Democrats did focus on those issues in the lead up to this past election cycle, that you had people talking about healthcare, reproductive rights, workers' rights, and that it wasn't enough to overcome the messaging that was coming out of the right. And so how do you contend with that? I
don't quite agree. I don't think people were talking about healthcare very much at all. I mean, what they were saying is, we will defend the Affordable Care Act, right? Against cuts. Republicans will want to cut it. We will defend it. Fine. That's good. Do you think that's enough? The current healthcare system is broken. It is a disaster. We're spending twice as much per person on healthcare any other nation, 85 million uninsured, 60,000 people a year dying because they don't get to a doctor.
Yeah.
We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. It's not enough to defend the Affordable Care Act. We need to do what every other nation on earth does. Guarantee health care to all people as a human right. That's why I strongly support Medicare for all. But what the Democrats have got to do is come up with a strong progressive agenda. Not only do we have 800,000 people who are homeless, you know what else we got? Millions of people spending 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes on housing. What about a massive housing program, putting people to work, good union jobs?
Bernie Sanders is spot on about the urgent needs facing working families today, and his points demand our full attention and action. It's clear that merely maintaining the status quo, like clinging to the Affordable Care Act without expanding it significantly, is not enough. We need bold, transformative policies that not only address but actively improve the economic realities of the average American. The challenges are glaring: stagnant wages that no longer match the cost of living, union formation being obstructed, and exorbitant healthcare and prescription drug costs that lead to dire consequences for millions. Sanders rightly criticizes the lack of action from certain political figures on these fronts, suggesting a disconnect between political rhetoric and the real-life needs of workers. Moreover, the focus shouldn't just be on defending what we already have, but on pushing forward with progressive, ambitious agendas like Medicare for all and substantial housing reforms that would not only alleviate homelessness, but would also ease the financial burden on millions of Americans spending an unsustainable portion of their income on housing. These initiatives would create numerous good-paying union jobs and help stabilize and grow the middle class. Call to focus on these substantive issues rather than getting lost in partisan squabbles or superficial policy defenses is crucial. It reflects a need to prioritize the well-being of citizens and the health of the planet over short-term political gains or maintaining an inefficient status quo. His voice serves as a reminder that our policies must be as dynamic and robust as the challenges they aim to meet.
Lowering the cost of housing. You got to think big, not small. To Trump's credit, I mean, he lies all the time, etc. He thinks big.
Yeah.
Democrats think incrementally. Maybe in 18 years, we will have accomplished this. Not good enough.
To that exact point, in 2016, you mobilized a massive movement around the country among grassroots Democrats. We've since lost that same vigor in the party, and in fact, we've seen an exodus of folks out of the Democratic Party. And so, looking forward in terms of how to rebuild the brand, given the success that you've had at mobilizing folks on the grassroots level, what advice would you give moving forward to get people excited about the party and not running?
It ain't complicated.
Not running away from the brand anymore.
You got to stand for something. Bottom line, you got to be honest and stand for something. Are you prepared to take on the billionaire class who have unprecedented levels of wealth and power right now and fight for the working class of this country? Democrats, by and large, with some exceptions, are not prepared to do that. And we need people, working class people, young people, to come in and say, you know what? This is the richest country in the history of the world. You got to back up for a minute. Take a deep breath. We're talking about throwing more people off of health insurance when we're the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people. Really? Are we a poor country? Are we Haiti? I don't think so. We're the richest country in the history of the world. You tell me, why can't we guarantee health care to all people as a human right? Why can't we have the best educational system in the world, from childcare all the way through graduate school? You think we can't afford to do that? We can. Why aren't we leading the world in combating climate change and creating jobs doing that? Think we can't do that? We can. Bottom line of all of this is you're looking at enormous power and wealth in the hands of a small number of people who could care less about working class people, not on their agenda. For some reason, which frankly I cannot understand, they suffer from the addiction, very serious problem, of greed. You got $50 billion, ain't enough. We're going to cut Social Security so I can get a tax break and maybe get $55 billion. That's the world we are living in. Have Democrats made that clear? No. Do we have to make it clear? Yes. Can we rally the American people, conservatives, progressives, around that approach? I think we can.
Why do you think it's so difficult to convince working class Americans that the billionaire class is not interested in them and that their economic policies aren't actually redounding to their benefit? If you look back to the Reagan days of trickle down, 1980, is really when this plan was implemented, and that is when income inequality exploded in this country. I'll put a graph right here on the screen to overlay over on top of this video to give an indication of what that graph looks like. But since those days, we have seen income inequality explode, and yet they continuously, you have a Republican base that continuously falls for this trap of thinking that so long as we continue to rig the rules in the favor of the millionaire and billionaire class, that it will somehow redound to the benefit of the working class. And all the while, income inequality continues to explode in this country, but we continue to perpetuate this cycle.
All right, but I don't quite agree with you. I agree with what you're saying, but I think you're letting the Democrats get off a little bit easy here. I think what is going on is not that people really believe, Trump has a lot of fervent supporters, I know that, but I don't think there's overwhelming support for the Republican ideology of giving tax breaks to billionaires and cutting Medicaid. But I think what has happened is people looked at the Democratic parties and they say, you've been talking for years, what did you do?
Yeah.
You had Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton developed these terrible trade agreements that led to the shutting down of tens of thousands of factories in America. You had Obama. Well, Obama bailed out the banks, didn't he? Did he really protect working class people to the degree that he should have? No, he did not. And I think, in Biden, you had actually the most progressive president, but not doing all that had to be done by any means. So I think it's not so much an attraction to the Republican ideology as saying, Democrats really, you say these things, but you don't do it. So to get back to the bottom line here, you need a Democratic Party that actually stands for the working class, not just rhetorically, but in reality. That means taking on the big money interests and fighting for working families and fighting for an agenda which will improve life for working families.
Practically speaking, though, do you have any concern that by going after these interests, we've seen how when Republicans and Trump embrace them, all these people heap money onto him, heap attention onto him, and so you have, for example, all of these tech billionaires. Once they recognize that he would be better for them, well, they threw their support in.
Right. These were the great liberals of a few years ago, right?
Right. But it stacks the deck against Democrats in such a way that they're able to then rig the rules in Trump's favor because he would be more favorable to him.
Let me look at it a little bit differently here, and that is at the heart of everything is a very, very corrupt campaign finance system.
Yeah.
Okay? And to be honest with you, I don't know how you change things fundamentally when you have people like Musk, not just Musk himself contributed, $270 million?
Yeah.
One person. I ran for president of the United States. We raised hundreds of millions of dollars. You know what the average contribution was? In one case, it was $27. Millions of people chipping in a little bit. When you are representing big money interests, you don't have to worry about small donors. You got to bring 10 people into the room. You can raise $1 billion, $2 billion. That's it. And for these guys, it's a good investment. So bottom line is on that, you got to get rid of the Citizens United. It has got to be one of the major priorities of any serious political person. Get rid of that. Billionaires should not be allowed to buy elections.
Bernie Sanders hits the nail on the head when he talks about the deep-rooted issues plaguing the American political landscape, especially for the working class. His criticism of both major parties not living up to their promises resonates deeply. It's clear that the cycle of favoring the ultra-rich under the guise of trickle-down benefits has not only failed, but exacerbated income inequality. This scenario leaves everyday Americans feeling betrayed and forgotten. On the Democratic side, the critique is just as sharp. Past administrations, despite their promises, have often ended up implementing policies that more clearly benefit the elite than the average Joe. From trade agreements that have decimated manufacturing jobs to financial bailouts that seem to prop up Wall Street more than Main Street, there's a palpable sense of disillusionment. Even with the more progressive strides we've seen under recent leadership, there's a consensus that it's still not enough. Then there's the monster in the room: campaign finance. Bernie's point about the corrupt system and the stark contrast between grassroots fundraising and billionaire-backed campaigns spotlights a massive democratic deficit. This isn't just a minor flaw in the system. It's a gaping hole that allows the wealthiest to shape policies and elections to an unfair advantage, often sidelining the needs and voices of the majority. The call to dismantle mechanisms like Citizens United is more than just political reform. It's a call for a revolution in how democracy functions. Ensuring that elections aren't just a playground for billionaires, but a fair representation of all people is crucial. We need a Democratic Party that doesn't just flirt with working-class rhetoric, but marries it with action, tangible policies that deliver real benefits to real people. Only then can we start to rebuild trust and ensure a political system that works for everyone, not just the privileged few. This isn't just necessary, it's fundamental to what democracy should stand for. This is Coal Talk, and I'll see you in the next video.